Hello and welcome to the Dark Wolf's Den Show, your home for the paranormal, politics, and much, much more, exclusively on Censored Freedom Network. Now, here is your host, Jerry the Dark Wolf Hicks.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you guys so much for being here. I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome to tonight's episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Before we get started, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, all those fun things you got to do on all these different platforms. Come on and join the Wolf Pack. We'd be glad to have you along for the ride, folks. And what a ride it is. We always try to start out the show, of course, with a little bit of politics. So tonight we're going to get into some interesting stories, folks, starting with the story that's been making all the headlines, of course, and that is the fact that Donald Trump has signed an executive order in which he is going to release the JFK, RFK, and MLK files. Check this out.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years.
For years, indeed. It's a little quiet. I do apologize for that. There's really not much I can do about the audio on this one.
For decades. And everything will be revealed. Okay? Give that to RFK Jr.
And he gives the pen to RFK Jr. I think that's really, really cool. But, you know, this is something that I personally am very, very glad to see. And apparently, they have to come up with a plan within 15 days, ladies and gentlemen, on how they're going to release this information. And then they're going to have up to 45 days to actually begin the release. So let's see how well this goes. I cannot wait for this information to come out, as Trump has said that it is in the public's best interest to have this information out unredacted. So they're supposed to be going back over and trying to reclassify a lot of the redactions that are in there and pull them out, which at this point, what does it matter, right? Most of the people that were involved in that are absolutely dead right now. So what does it matter, right? We can find out the truth about what happened, and their lives don't need to be held accountable. Their legacy will be, but their lives won't, right? They're already done and gone. Personally, I think George Bush Sr. did it. That's my take, working for the CIA. The man couldn't remember where he was that day. Everybody in the world that was alive that day could tell you exactly where they were and what they were doing, except George Bush Sr. It's kind of like 9/11. If you did know where you were on 9/11, right? If you were old enough to live through that. I know now there's people that are 25 years old, 24 years old, that weren't even alive back then. 23, I think it's 23 now, that weren't even alive on 9/11. So if you remember, ladies and gentlemen, you remember where you were when an event that monumental and momentous actually occurs. Speaking of momentous events occurring, we've got another bit of wackadoo events happening, I guess you'd say. Davos, ladies and gentlemen, the home of the wackadoos. Davos 2025 celebrates neo-paganist movement. They want to give personhood. Check this out. They want to give personhood status to forests, rivers, valleys, and streams. I'm going to repeat that. They are going to give the status of you and me, a person, to nature stuff. Forest, rivers, valleys, and streams. Now, I'm not going to say that those aren't conscious. I'm sure to a degree that forests are conscious and certain things, but rivers, streams, I mean, this is clearly a push for more climate propaganda, among other things. And they even tell us, ladies and gentlemen, why they're doing this.
Davos. Let's go and play it. some of this climate action that has really intensified in the last couple of decades, Switzerland has invested, developed some different ways of engaging in preservation, conservation, and management of ecosystems. One example is it's become a place where nature has been granted legal personhood so that ecosystems' rights to exist.
In Switzerland, folks, they have granted nature personhood. I bet you they're going to get more rights than we do.
Thrive to regenerate are codified and recognized in Swiss law.
So, honestly, folks, where this is headed, in my opinion, is not a good thing, and I think is headed down the transhumanist route. Why? Well, if nature's a person, if a tree's a person, then everything qualifies as a person, and you can do these things to a tree, so you can do these things to a human. See how this is going to get really weird really quick? I don't think this is ever going to be a good thing. And of course, this is a bigger push for 15-minute cities. You gotta save the tree and save the fish, and we gotta let California burn so that we can save fish. Speaking of California burning, ladies and gentlemen, do you wonder who set those fires? I do. I know I've got my theories, but I don't have enough evidence to definitively say it. However, this guy might. He is the spokesman, it looks like, for the Eaton Fire Department. Check this out.
My first piece of advice to you is let's take care of our mental and physical health first before we embark upon what is going to be a journey to
I agree. We should always take care of our mental and physical health.
Rebuild these communities back and rebuild them better than they were when we started this fire.
I'm sorry, when what, buddy?
Started this fire.
Oh, really?
Started this fire.
So, did he just say they started the fire in Eaton? That's what I heard. I'm just saying. Maybe it was a Freudian slip. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he actually meant to say, when these fires started, right? Sure, that's what he meant. Then again, we also know that Los Angeles wants to become a smart city, right, folks? Los Angeles wants to become a smart city by 2028. So this would play right into their plans for a smart city. Burn everything down, because the people would not agree to it otherwise, right? We know that for a fact. So why not just burn it all down and give them no other choice? Then they'll be begging to rebuild, and we'll rebuild it so much better the way we want it. We, of course, being the ones in charge, the who do you think, right? The deep state, in my opinion, or whoever wants to make these smart cities, the World Economic Forum, Davos, whoever is in charge of this evil plot to basically destroy America and the world and do whatever they want. We also know them as the globalists. And then you've got people out there like the fact checkers, right, that work for the globalists. Well, I thought this was pretty funny because some of us, like Mr. Kennedy here, don't care much for the fact checkers, and I like the way he put this. And I don't know what's funnier, folks. Watch the two guys behind him. I don't know if it's what he says or their reactions that's funnier to me.
You served in Washington for years. You're going to be challenging the status quo. You're going to be called crazy. Many people also called Noah crazy. And then the rains came. And all the fact checkers died.
I don't know what's funnier, their reaction or what he said, but I think that's friggin' hilarious and it's true. Just because the fact checkers say it's not true doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. As a matter of fact, those guys are always, as far as I've ever seen, pushing nothing more than a propagandic agenda and not actual facts. Just what they want you to believe, right? And there's a whole lot of that going on. And especially when it comes, of course, to our next topic, which is the paranormal or disclosure. Last night we brought up the disclosure wars, and we asked if there are two factions at least that are fighting within the government. to disclose or not disclose this information, or alternately to disclose misinformation and muck up the waters and make us all look even more foolish for believing and repeating such things, right? And of course, we named a couple people last night that may or may not be on either side. I don't know who's who, but I was discussing this in a chat room earlier on YouTube. Gary Nolan, I believe, is the name of the guy who was being interviewed on that show. But we know that one faction has been doing everything they can. A faction, I should say, some know them as Majestic 12, has been doing everything they can for over 80 years, for all of my lifetime, to obfuscate and hide the truth about the alien presence, if there is one. Sometimes the government used it to their advantage to work on secret projects. That's fair. I understand that kind of secrecy, that the enemy doesn't know about the secret weapon that we've got against them. 100%. I completely understand that. But that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is having things that they have most likely, if not reverse engineered, at least that's what I believe, to get different technologies and things like that, and do not want the public to know, have killed people, have sent people to mental institutions and literally drove them insane. That's a real story. Check it out if you don't know about that story. There are so many different ways the government has tried to interfere in ufology for so long and misdirect and give misinformation and false sightings and garbage evidence on purpose, no doubt, on purpose, to throw off all the investigators. But what if it's more than two factions, ladies and gentlemen? Because we know that faction, then we've got another faction that seems to genuinely be working for disclosure on a upper level, on a public level. And I'm sure the first group would not be happy about the second group existing, let alone doing what they're doing. So perhaps that's the case. But I think we may be thinking too small, as was pointed out to me earlier today. Shout out to Shelly, and I'm trying to remember the name. He actually subbed to me. One of the guys did. There was a couple people I was having a discussion with over there. Who's my new sub over here? Explorer 2021. Shout out to you. Appreciate you subbing up the channel. But they brought up the point that it could be more like international issues with disclosure. And I really hadn't thought about that to that degree. I mean, it's been brought up over time, don't get me wrong, the exopolitics of disclosure. But there are certain countries, perhaps like Russia, or even China, or Japan, or who knows what other countries, that also may have these down craft, that also may be reverse engineering these technologies. They may also be lying to their populations. And is it possible that the other governments don't want each other to come out? Now, it's only going to take one nation to break open Pandora's box on this, and all the governments will have to admit that they've lied to the people. All of them. UK, America, we know our government lies to us on the daily. That's no surprise here. At least most of us know at this point. You gotta wonder why all these governments across the world have kept silent about this topic when you know that they know something. Our government put out a report that went back 4 years. I was so mad when that report came out. Folks, we got 70 or 80 years of information that they did not give us. That's the next thing I'd like to see Trump sign over. Any and all information dealing with UAP, UFO, alien presence, or anything related there and thereof. But what if they're the ones stopping it to begin with? What if there are NHIs that are working within our government and other governments? Would they have to clear a disclosure before it happened? Possibly. Maybe that's what's stopping it, the NHIs themselves. Well, You would think that maybe they want their presence to be known as much as they're showing up in the skies. What if there are more than one faction? If there's warring factions within this, just like the humans within the disclosure, that do want disclosure and that don't want disclosure, because both could have their reasons, right? One may not want humans to be fully aware of their presence, where the other does. But then wouldn't they show themselves? I don't know. I do know that it seems like there's a weird dichotomy going on where we're getting information, then we're not getting information. We're getting garbage information, then we're getting good information. We're getting leaked information, then we're getting government-sanctioned leaked information. And I don't know about you guys, but I never trust government-sanctioned information. I don't care who's giving it or where it's coming from. And speaking of people that has been giving sanctioned information, it appears, I have my doubts about a man named Jason Sands. I don't know what you guys think. Do you guys trust him? Let me tell you why I don't. First, he said he worked in the Air Force listening to phones on bases to catch information they could leak out. I get that. That I believe actually does happen. There's not a doubt in my mind that every single phone on a base is tapped, including probably your cell phones, if you are on a military base. I might be wrong, but I'd be willing to bet. So my first thing is I would automatically assume I'm being listened to, period, especially if I work for a USAP or unacknowledged special access program. I would definitely know that I'm being listened to for everything that I might say. At least I would assume it, whether it's true or not. But he claims that he heard about alien tech on a phone call. That's possible. Now, of course, he says he heard EBIN and didn't know what an EBIN was. Maybe, maybe not. But if it was alien tech that he heard, ladies and gentlemen, those words specifically, let's remember alien can be Russian, alien can be Mexican, it can be Japanese, Chinese, alien to us, alien or foreign to America. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's some kind of extraterrestrial alien, if that's all he heard. Now, that's one thing. He claims to have met a blue alien. Guys, I know if you've been in the UFO world, you already know the joke behind the blue aliens. That they're not real. That this was something made up by the blue alien or blue chicken cult, as some call it. They're blue avians nonetheless. And it was all made up by Corey Goode. And I can say that in confidence because that's been admitted to in depositions in court. So I'm not slandering. This is the truth of what has happened. Corey Goode has been an admitted liar, and Jason Sands is backing up parts of his story which are admitted lies. So that's where I start to really have a problem, but that's not even where it ends. He also mentions the weather station at Area 51, which is where Charles White said that he would meet the tall white aliens, if you know that story. He said he asked about aliens and didn't understand when they were willing to show him. Now, I highly doubt this myself, especially considering from what we know about how the military works and every whistleblower we've ever heard. You're not going to have an upper-level officer spill the beans that quickly or that easily. If I was on Area 51 working legitly and I looked at the commander and said, show me the aliens, they're not going to go, yeah, come right over here. Well, I'll show you. That's not going to be a thing. It's going to be plausible deniability, not, yeah, I'll show you what I can show you. No. I don't believe that for 1 second. Not even a little bit. After all of the interviews I've listened to from whistleblowers over the years, if even a quarter of them are true, I don't buy this. But then here is the clincher for me, ladies and gentlemen. This is the reason that I just really, really do not trust Jason Sands. He also mentioned that he was in the 20 and Back program, which is another piece of Corey Goode's made up story. Dun dun da da. When confronted about it, he said he meant it metaphorically. Of course, he meant it in another way. That's not really what he meant to say. He actually meant it like this. Folks, this man sounds like a con man if I've ever heard of a con man. And it's unfortunate that we've had so many of these through the years that have showed up in the ufology world trying to do things that they should not do. I do apologize for the sound there. But it kind of fit the conversation, truthfully, right? So we've had so many of these grifters show up and try to get fame and get notoriety. And what bothers me is I don't think that's what he's about. No, I think he could be a part of the bad group that is trying to stop disclosure. And bad, good, whichever, but I'm going to call them the bad group, the ones that don't want disclosure to the human race. I really, really believe that could be the case. Do I know it for a fact? No. But his story has too much garbage in it for me to buy it. It doesn't work for me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys believe him. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion. And I think we should be very, very cautious in every single whistleblower that comes out from here out. Very cautious. We need to be overly abundantly questioning of every single thing they say. This is another great example why you don't take things at face value. I liked Jason Sands when I first heard his interview. A little of it sounded kind of shady, but I liked the guy. And then I did my research, and I found out that he had said a couple things, including the 20 and back, that are absolute bunkum. And we know it. So always be wary of what you hear, folks. I don't care if it comes from my mouth, or especially the mainstream media, or any other creator out here. Do not take anything anyone ever says at face value. Always, always, always verify. Trust, but verify. Right? Because you never know. Perhaps they made a mistake in what they read. Perhaps they were going on bad information. You never know, right? Always, always, always do your research. Always be informed. If there's nothing else that you can take away from every show that I ever do, it is this: always be informed. Folks, I want to go out tonight on something kind of funny, something that I created the other day. It does have watermarks in it. It is not professional by any means whatsoever, but I thought it was fun. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with you guys. I hope you enjoy. Just a little fun for the ending of the show here.
The year was 2025. The world held its breath. After centuries of speculation, it was finally happening. First contact. Inside Mission Control, tension crackled like static electricity. Scientists in white coats adjusted headsets and whispered into microphones. Generals in crisp uniforms nervously tapped their feet. Politicians, sweating under the television lights, practiced their speeches of universal peace and goodwill. Years of preparation had led to this moment. The moment humanity joined the galactic community. What would the aliens be like? Would they be friendly? The answer, as it turned out, was a resounding sort of and kind of. The alien spaceship, a rather battered-looking flying saucer with mismatched taillights, hovered awkwardly above the landing pad. A ramp extended with a loud clang, and out walked, well, not quite what anyone had expected. They were short and purple, with more eyes than seemed strictly necessary. One was wearing a bathrobe. Another sported fuzzy bunny slippers. The leader, if you could call them that, had a bright green antenna sticking out of their head at a rakish angle. They were holding a half-eaten cosmic donut and seemed more concerned with licking the sprinkles off their fingers than greeting the assembled dignitaries. This was not how anyone had pictured first contact.
Greetings, Earthlings. We come in peace and also for snacks. We heard you had good snacks.
Before anyone could even formulate a response, a nervous intern tripped over a stray cable, sending a cascade of coffee onto the main control panel. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the translator circuit blew a fuse, rendering the aliens' next statement, something about intergalactic parking tickets, into a series of high-pitched squeaks and honks. Communication, it turned out, was more difficult than expected. The universal translator, cobbled together with duct tape and hope, could barely handle ordering takeout, let alone deciphering interstellar diplomacy. The scientists tried everything: mathematical formulas, interpretive dance, even playing recordings of whale songs. The aliens, meanwhile, seemed more interested in the vending machine in the corner. Finally, one brave scientist offered the alien leader a bag of cheese puffs. The effect was immediate. The aliens' eyes, all 12 of them, lit up. They let out a delighted chirp and devoured the entire bag in one gulp.
These are delightful. What are they called?
We call them cheese puffs.
Thus began a cultural exchange built not on treaties and diplomacy, but on shared snacks and awkward laughter. The aliens, it turned out, were surprisingly fond of Doritos and had an unquenchable thirst for Tang. Who knew that the key to intergalactic peace was a well-stocked pantry? As the day wore on, the initial tension gave way to a kind of bewildered camaraderie. The scientists taught the aliens how to play air hockey. They cheated, of course, using their telekinetic abilities. The politicians, after several highly confusing rounds of charades, realized the aliens were more interested in trading recipes for interdimensional cookies than discussing trade agreements. The highlight of the day, however, came when someone put on music. 1 minute everyone was awkwardly shuffling around, trying to bridge the language barrier with hand gestures. The next they were all, humans and aliens alike, doing the electric slide. It was a sight to behold, a testament to the unifying power of bad dance moves and questionable life choices.
Thank you for the hospitality, Earthlings, and the snacks. But before we leave, can you tell us where to find the nearest Taco Bell? We heard they have excellent burritos.
With that, the spaceship blasted off, leaving behind a bewildered but strangely optimistic group of humans. First contact had been a disaster, a hilarious, messy, snack-filled disaster, and somehow it was perfect.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that there. I kind of worked that up the other day. That is what happens when first contact goes hilariously wrong. I'm going to try to come up with more little fun things like that and share with you guys through the week, folks. Try to end the show out on a positive note as much as we can. Make sure you check us out and join the Wolf Pack over here on Fanbase, on YouTube, on Rumble, that's right, and also over on BitChute. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button, ring the bell, join the channel, whatever it is on each platform. Of course, we are also a part of the Censored Freedom Network over there, up in the corner there, so make sure you check that out over on X, ladies and gentlemen. With that said, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and until next we meet, have a good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. How? Yeah, that's right.